Thank you very much. First of all, I should like to compliment AGHS and the Canadian High Commission for arranging this dialogue on this very important issue. At a time when there is no discussion in the civil and the political parties of Pakistan on this issue, this kind of discussion really is very reassuring, and AGHS and the Canadian High Commission deserves to be complimented. I would like to place before you three things. Number one, the death, destruction, and displacement of the Afghan refugees is caused, in my view, by two fundamental reasons. One reason is that the state policies of still continuing the Jihad Project and the Brzezinski's formula of the strategic depth. So on the one hand, the Jihad Project continuation is responsible, and on the other hand, the total disconnect of the civil, political, and the parliament to even discuss this issue. These two, in my views, have contributed to the death, destruction, and displacement of the Afghan refugees. And I should also like to commend the previous governments, not only of Imran Khan, but also of Mian Nawaz Sharif. Senator Walid Iqbal has mentioned, and also Senator Abbasi Sahiba has mentioned. But I tell you that in February 2017, it was the PMLN government which which made orders, cabinet decided in February 2017 to make legislation for the Afghan refugees. And I was not in the PMLN, but when I met the Prime Minister, I congratulated him. And I said, I hope that you will be able to do it. And he retorted back in Punjabi, which gave me an indication that perhaps he was not very hopeful, although he had taken the initiative. Then comes the PTI government. Soon thereafter, after Nawaz Sharif did that, soon thereafter he was bogged down in the Panama case, and out he was. And the entire project collapsed. Then comes Mr. Imran Khan. And whatever Mr. Walid Iqbal has mentioned, he forgot to mention that even Imran Khan in Karachi publicly stated that the PTI government will give nationality to the Afghan refugees. It was a tall order, and we said it cannot be done, but still we welcomed it, and we said this is a very important announcement, and it can open the doors for progressing forward. But then what happened? Even Mr. Imran Khan, at one point of time when the refugees converged on the border and they were not allowed to come in, Imran Khan made a public declaration that they must be allowed. The Prime Minister ordered, but they were not allowed. Then came, you might have heard the name of Ambassador Muhammad Sadiq. He was responsible. He was the point man of Pakistan with Afghanistan. And he made a public statement saying that the students will be allowed to come. The students also had converged on the border, but the security establishment of Pakistan did not permit even the students at that time. And a few months later, Ambassador Sadiq resigned. He did not say what was the reason, but I'm just saying you this. So the point I want to make is that since the policies are made by the security establishment without the input from the parliament and even the political parties, sorry to say that the political parties have not also taken it up as seriously as they should have. This, in my view, is the basic reason for the death, destruction, and displacement of Afghan refugees. We have, as this lady from Karachi mentioned earlier, she said we have made them a political football. So of course we have made. We invited the Afghan refugees. In the days of Ziaul Haq, we said they are the Muhajirs and we are the Ansars, and there is no need for any legislation. We said, well, they are our own brothers and they are most welcome. And we have a Citizenship Act which says that a person born in Pakistan will be given Pakistani nationality subject to some condition, but it is not being allowed in the case of Afghan refugees. We have made them really political football. We used them in the referendum of General Ziaul Haq. We didn't make legislation because it was our policy of the strategic depth that we wanted to keep them that way. The question sometimes that I have been asking as to why this sudden decision to expel them, I have been always wondering as to why. Some people thought that to put the Afghans under pressure. Some people thought that really there was a security threat to Pakistan. Probably both these might be true, but probably this might also be true that this sudden decision was taken to create a commotion in the country so that the elections could be postponed. It is possible. I have no evidence for that, but I suspect that one of the reasons at the back of the mind might have been, this can create the dynamics of its own, the refugees going back in millions. It will create the dynamics, and under the force of the dynamics, the elections can be postponed. And of course, it was also said the security threat, it was total nonsense. The security threat that the Taliban, these Muhajirs, the refugees, there were not militants among them. The militants we had defended and protected. Mullah Mansoor Akhtar, when he was killed by US drone, and Pakistani passport and national identity card were discovered from his person, who was keeping him? And Osama bin Laden, as Ahmad Rashid just pointed out. And all the big militants, whether it was Naik Muhammad, whether it was Baitullah Masood, whether it was Hakimullah Masood, whether it was Wali, anybody, they all were killed by drone strikes. Not one of them has been killed by Pakistan security agencies. That means we were running with the hare, hunting with the hound. We were nurturing the militants because we wanted to use the militants to project the state power beyond borders in according to our own skewed security and foreign policies. So having said that, what I would suggest, I would make a few recommendations and then you can also discuss on that. I think that the first thing is that the political parties in the parliament must seize it, try to take back the space. There must be more such discussions like this on the policies. Number two, we should have legislation for the Afghan refugees. This has been decided by the cabinet of Pakistan in February 2017. And that cabinet decision has not been reversed by any subsequent cabinet, whether PTI government or whether the PDM government or whether now the caretaker government. That cabinet decision has not been reversed. And under the rules of business, a cabinet decision holds the field until it is formally reversed by a subsequent cabinet decision. So if that is there, and even if we don't ask to sign the 1951 Geneva Protocol agreements, even if we don't ask for that, because if you sign the 1951 Geneva Agreement, which is a good thing, but if for some reason they don't want to sign, the basic premise in the 1951 agreement is to make domestic legislation. Therefore, now you have February 2017 cabinet decision, therefore we should have legislation. There was also in the time of PMLN government, among the cabinet decisions was, another decision was that the Foreigners Registration Act should not be invoked for the time being, so that they were not expelled immediately. I think that the Foreign Registration Act also needs to be revisited. And the revisitation that I have in mind is that we should add a clause into that, that subject to those who have applied for asylum or refugee status, usko nikal ke, I think that we can have the same law, Foreign Registration Act, with that provision. And if I recall correctly, in 2005, there was a move in the parliament to make that amendment. But some parliamentarians resisted. I think there needs to be a greater discussion on that. The third thing that I want to say is that there was a lot of discussion also, and this friend from Hazara, he criticized UNHCR and by implication also SHARP. Well, I think much more could have been done by UNHCR and also by the SHARP, but the fact is, and nobody talks of that, it is the government of Pakistan. It is the government of Pakistan which stopped the UNHCR from registering the refugees. It is not somebody else. So if the UNHCR has been stopped by the government of Pakistan, protocol and diplomacy doesn't permit that the UNHCR will say, no, I will go ahead. I wish the country director should have mentioned that it is the government of Pakistan which has stopped them. And if I don't know, but in talking with the SHARP people, I know one thing, that more than 400,000 applications are pending with them. They can't move because the government of Pakistan has stopped them. Therefore, I would say that, all right, if the government of Pakistan has some serious issues and they don't permit the UNHCR, they don't permit the SHARP by implication, then in that case, improve your own capacity to be able to register these people. If you don't have the capacity, then you have to trust the UNHCR in this, but they are not doing it. They will not improve their capacity, they will not permit, because they don't want to do it. So that also is an important point I wanted to make. Finally, I should also like to say that we have to abandon the Jihad Project. I think that the Jihadi project has still not been abandoned. And unless, and how it can be abandoned? The political parties, the civil society, the human rights organizations, the discussions like this, they must publicly state that we believe the Jihadi project has not been abandoned, and we demand that the Jihadi project must be abandoned. I think this also is very important. And one aspect that I should like to point out is that the manner in which we have pushed them out of Pakistan in this winter, starvation, no food, no clothing, what I think what is likely to happen is that the small children of Afghanistan might be tempted by the militant organizations, and some parents might even be forced to sell them. And it has happened in the past that the Afghan children were sold by the parents, and they fell into the hands of militants and became finally suicide bombers. So if the government of Pakistan says that for the security reasons we are expelling them, on the other hand, what will happen is that you have created another security threat. And this point is not being discussed in as much detail as it needs to be discussed. That by throwing them out, you have not improved the security, you have undermined the national security of Pakistan. And this must be debated in the parliament. I hope that the elections are held freely and fairly on 8th February and the new government and the parliament comes into place. We must have a focused discussion on the threats to Pakistan's security as a result of this thoughtless expulsion of the Afghan refugees. And this is happening because all the state institutions have been controlled by the security establishment. Unless that, Pakistan has become a security-driven state. It is not a welfare-driven state and not a rights-based state. So we must always raise the voice that we must revert to the moorings of Pakistan in Article 38 of the Constitution, that Pakistan has to be a welfare-driven state, a rights-driven state, and not a security-driven state. I want to thank you very much. I hope there is a ray of hope. I think there is a ray of hope if the political parties and the parliament decide to play their role. There is a continuity. Whether it was the PMLN government or whether it was the PTI government, I think that they can't go back on that. It is already there on the record. So I think that with that thing that we have, we can move forward. Thank you very much.
आपकी खबर, आपकी आवाज़, voicepkdotnet